I think John must have sent you the link for the teaching, and you must have that. The 7-point mind training, one of very well-known texts and source of practice among all the Tibetan Buddhist traditions. And so it is known to be a commentary, not literally, but like meaning commentary to the 8 verses of mind training. So Geshe Langdang wrote the 8 verses of mind training, and then Geshe Chekawa, who wrote these commentaries, was very impressed when he first heard about that. First, he heard someone reciting it, and he heard about that in the 8 verses where it says, may I offer the victory to others, may I take the defeat on myself. When he heard that one, his mind was blown away, because it is so radical of how we think, Normally, that is the opposite. We, as ordinary beings, we take the victory and we offer the defeat to others. But here, he heard this in this practice, to offer the victory to others and take the defeat on yourself. And he was when he heard that, he heard through someone reciting that. That's something, he was so curious, and so then he wanted to study and learn more about that. He wanted to know more about that. And so he was trying to find who composed it and who was the author. And as he was trying to find out, by that time, Geshe Langdang, who wrote that, has already passed away. But someone told him that, but there is another teacher who is the disciple of that Geshe Langdang, known as Geshe Sherab, Kadamba master, all of them, Geshe Sherab. So if you go to him, maybe you can learn from him about these teachings and instructions. And so first, then he went to see the Geshe Sherab, and then it is said Geshe Sherab was teaching one teachings when he went to a group. And Geshe Sherab was not teaching on this topic, but another topics, more on moral discipline and some other subjects. So he was a little bit disappointed because he wanted to really study what he heard about this mind training, Lojong, and he wasn't talking about that. But later he went to see him privately, and then he told him, and then Geshe Sherab was, said that he have all the teaching instructions that he got from Geshe Langdang and others, and so then he requested, and then he gave teachings, and then Geshe Chekawa started to apply those teachings. And he said in one of his commentaries, it really changed his attitude so much. And so having studied and practiced himself those 8 verses of mind training, and have changed the transformation in himself, and so he wrote these commentaries, 7-point of mind training, as a commentary for the 8 verses mind training. So that is kind of bit of story about the source of these teachings. The adversarial mind training is the root source for this, and this is the kind of like a commentary, not by word, but it's kind of general, the contents meaning of adversarial mind training. And he came with this 7 points of mind training. And so this is, and yeah, Geshe was at the very beginning, you know, he had a lot of fear. But after he started practicing the adversarial mind training, all the fear went away, you know, and he was able to overcome the fear by applying. And of course, that was only one of the experience or the transformation he had. But of course, you know, in terms of his spiritual progress, a lot of spiritual progress, and so. So then if we go to the text itself, the 7 point of thought transformation or mind training, sometimes it is called, you know, different translations. And then at the very beginning, you can see Om Sati and homage to great compassion, the essence of this nectar of advice is continuity from Salingba. Okay, so with that, so first, you know, the first, I think, homage, paying homage to the compassion, great compassion. And with that, one, you know, it indicates what the subject is going to be about, you know. The subject that he is going to touch on is going to be about loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta. And the reason that is one of the kind of summarizing or condensing the subject that he is going to kind of talk on or to compose on. And another thing is the reason why it is paid homage to the great compassions. Like in many other scriptures, they pay homage to the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, different Buddhas, or sometimes their gurus. And so here is pay homage to great compassions, and is similar to one of the great Indian masters, Chandrakirtis, in his middle way schools, commentary or middle way. He also paid homage to the great compassion at the very beginning, and he said he paid great compassion to pay homage to the great compassion because compassion is very crucial at the beginning, middle, in the end in our spiritual path or journey. At the very beginning, the great compassion is like seed that give birth to the plant of all the realizations, especially the Bodhisattva's realizations. It starts with the great compassions. And in the middle, so it is the great compassion that give birth to the bodhicitta mind, and that give the birth to all the other practice of six perfection and so forth, all the bodhisattvas path and realizations. So therefore it's very important at the very beginning, like the seed. In the middle is very crucial and important, like the water and fertilizers and light and heat that maintain or keep the plant alive, that sustain the plant, the water. Even you have planted a seed and even it is starting to grow, if we stop watering it and give all the other sustaining cotton condition, it will not be able to sustain and it will die. Same way, even we have developed great compassion at the very beginning, and even we have developed bodhicitta, but then, it's not like that. The bodhicitta cannot kind of deteriorate at the very beginning. That is not that it cannot disintegrate. And so therefore we have to keep the plant of bodhicitta, sustain it, and the way to sustain like the water, fertilizer, light, and that is the great compassion. And so therefore in the middle is very crucial and important. At the end, it's like important, like once the plant has fully grown and it produces fruit, and then we are able to enjoy the fruit, the result of that plant, enjoy the fruit. In the same way, once we achieve enlightenment, the result of our spiritual practice, all the sentient beings are able to receive all the benefit through teaching, inspirations, blessing, and so forth from all the Buddhas. And it is able to do because of the great compassion. It is the great compassion that allowed the Buddha to be benefit and help to the sentient beings. If you don't have the great compassion, even you become enlightened, you might not help and benefit other sentient beings like Arhat, even though they have achieved nirvana, but due to lack of great compassion, they don't engage into the act of benefiting others so much. And so it is the great compassion that allow the sentient beings to receive the fruits of that realizations or that spiritual realizations of all the Buddhas. So that is why he paid homage to the great compassion. So even though he's paying homage to the great compassion, it's not just homage, but what here the teaching is, he's saying how important it is for us to actualize the great compassions. How it is important to actualize the great compassions. If we can develop great compassions, we ourselves will find much more peace in ourselves. We will be able to bring a lot of peace around anyone whom we encounter, be it in our family, friends, with a colleague at a job place, anywhere, any place we go, we bring that great compassion energy. Through that, we bring a lot of sense of peace. And through that compassion, great compassion, we can be able to inspire many others to be more compassionate as well. Just by your own compassion. And it is only through that great compassion we can achieve bodhicitta. It's only through great compassion that we can achieve all the bodhisattva path. It is only through the great compassion that we can achieve fully enlightenment. It is only through the great compassion that we can be help and benefit endless help and benefit to all sentient beings. And therefore, that is why reason he paid that homage at the very beginning. Second line, the essence of this nectar of advice is continuity from Silingba. So that one explained where the teachings come from, the lineage. So here Silingba is a master from nowadays Indonesia, So around 10, 11 centuries, Adisha Divamkara, one of the greatest Indian masters at that time, he himself was great practitioner. He himself was great teachers with a lot of students, so forth. But he heard about this teacher, Silingba, in Indonesia, now Indonesia. This great master of Bodhicitta teaching instructions, mind training teaching instructions, and he heard much about him, and he was extremely motivated to receive all these instructions, all these teachings, all these transmissions. So then he decided to make a journey to to Indonesia, and by boat, of course, at that time. And it is said that it took him like 12, 13 months to reach there. And you can imagine what it is like to be with a small boat in those times. You don't have a big boat in those times, and very small boat, and 12, 13 months in the oceans. Very dangerous. And in the story, there is a lot of kind of obstacles or dangers that they face, but he makes such a journey to receive those instructions and teachings. Those should be an inspiration for us, For us, sometimes if we have to drive 2 hours to receive teaching, we would think it's too far away, too long, isn't it? We don't have the dedication, the motivations. If it's 4 hours drive, then it's no. But you can see with someone like Adisha, even though he himself was great master, but when he heard about this great master and all the instructions that he had, all the oral transmissions he has, and he was he so much wanted that he took such a journey on ocean, a dangerous journey for so long to reach there. And then he reached there, and then with the Lama Silingba, he studied for 12 years with him, and then he came back, and then he continued to spread and share the instructions, the teaching that he received and that he practiced, and all the oral transmission that he received and practiced. And then he came to Tibet, on the request of one of the kind of the king from the western part of Tibet, and so he started to share and give and teaching on this mind trainings, teachings. And Adisha passed to his disciples, such as Don Demba, Potowa, Ishidromdemba, Potowa, and so forth. And through them, then Selingba, then Chekawa, and they received. So that is the kind of the lineage. That is where this came. This, these instructions or advice or teachings coming from the Selingba, Lama Selingba, through Adisha to the Tibet. And of course, then, if you go back further, then earlier in terms of writing of those teachings, then, around 7th, 8th centuries, you find in Shantideva, you find many of those teachings, like exchanging and equalizing self with others. Those instructions you find there very. If you go further, then you find in Nagarjuna's writings, such as Precious Garland. He doesn't go very detailed, but he does touch on those teachings, equalizing, exchanging self with others, without going much detail. You find more detail in Shantideva later, but Nagarjuna around 2nd century, 2nd, 3rd, you find that. And then if you go further, then you can find in sutras, they are spread out. All those instructions are in sutra, but they are not in one sutra. You find some instruction in one sutra, you find the other sutra, other instructions in another sutra. So with those Indian masters and the Tibetan masters, they made it easy as compiling all, take the essence, main essence from each of those sutra and compile into one particular text, that it makes us easier to study and practice without having to check in each of those sutras, And so that is the lineage, okay? And then when it comes to the 7th point, so these are the 7th point, the first point is training into the foundations or preliminary, okay? This practice of 7-point mind training is part of, in terms of Lamrim or stages of path. In Lamrim or stages of path, there are 3 stages of the path. Initial or foundational practice, then middle practice, middle scope practice, and great scope practice. And those mind training are part of the great scope practice. And in order to have when we practice, in order to have a success in the practice of those great scope practices, we need to have a good foundation for middle and the initial practice. If we have better foundations, then we can be able to have more success in this practice. If we don't have the foundation, then even we practice, it will be more challenging, more difficult to have progress in those. So therefore, that is where the first point is training in the preliminary or foundational practice. So that is where first train in all preliminary practices. So preliminary practices here, is training or practicing the precious human rebirth, training and practicing on impermanent, and training and practicing in, going to the refuge by understanding infallible of law and cause or karma, law of cause and effect, the karma, and then training into by seeing the defect or the fault of samsara in general, and thereby, being fed up with samsara and cultivating the wish to free from the samsara, from the prison of samsara. And when you have that feeling, the wish to free from this prison of samsara, then only then we will have the inspiration for real liberations. And so once we have the inspiration for liberations from the depth of our heart, then also we can feel compassion for others who are also in the prison of samsara. And so therefore that will help us to develop the great compassions. So in general, all the practice of within the Lamrim or stages of the path, all the teachings or practice of middle scope and the small scope are the preliminary practice here. Okay. So here, when we talk of preliminary practices here, we are talking about all the practice that you find. Some of them which I've just mentioned, 4 of them which I've just mentioned, but all the practice that you find in middle scope and great scope within the stages of the path, those are the preliminary practices that when you say train in all these preliminary practices here. Okay, so that is what. So all this subject itself is a vast subject, and I think if we talk with each of them, it can be many weeks, months. But we just touch. First of all, is important to recognize this precious human life, and precious in a sense. If we utilize it well, we have so much potential. Not a pressure in a sense because we are more beautiful than other lives. Not because we are more physically powerful than others. Not because we are more stronger or bigger than others, In terms of strong, there are many animals who are much more stronger than human beings physically. Elephant, with one trunk of that elephant can kind of throw us. Very powerful. Big, they are very big animals. And some animals so beautiful, But why is precious? The precious is because of our brain, our cognitive ability, our mind to be able to use reasoning and logic. That is very important part, to be able to use our mind with the reasoning and logic. And, when we practice the Dharma, we have to contemplate, we have to reflect, contemplate with examples, with the reasoning, with the logic. And because we human beings have that, so we have the incredible potential to actualize the Dharma within ourselves, to actualize the great compassion, bodhicitta, the wisdom within ourselves, the potential to actualize nirvana and fully enlightenment. That is what makes this human life precious. That ability, that potential. If we don't use that potential, that ability for a good purpose, then it's not very precious. It is precious, but you misuse it, and it didn't become a precious. So basically, I think to understand how precious it is, how valuable it is, in terms of this incredible potential we possess because of this incredible mind, intellect, intelligence, and how rare and difficult it is to obtain such a precious human life again and again. So reflecting that more and more, as you reflect, contemplate more and more that, then you begin to feel, oh, I shouldn't waste this life, this precious life. I have to take maximum from this life, utilize it to the greatest benefit. The purpose of meditating on precious human life is to come to that conclusions that I have so much this incredible potential and I shouldn't waste them. Instead, I should make it meaningful, utilize it for the maximum benefit of others and oneself. And so that should give you a strong inspiration, driving force to become better human beings, better persons, to engage in the Dharma and to really practice. Then next, the meditations or the practice of precious human life. I mean, impermanent in general, and especially death impermanent. So we see the incredible potential we possess as we meditate on precious human life. So we do see incredible potential and the need to utilize that potential and make our life meaningful for others and oneself. But sometimes we might be lazy a little bit, and might kind of postpone. I want to practice, but maybe I can practice later. And so that can be, again, another obstacles. That can become another obstacles. And so to overcome that obstacle, then we meditate on impermanent in general, how everything is, all these conditioned phenomena are unstable, that they will integrate or disintegrate anytime. And especially our life does not last forever. Maximum, even we had the, very long life. We could have 100. If we can live 100, that is a very long life. But even we live 100 life, if we try to see our own life, half of it has already gone, and half of them will go very quickly. That is, even if we live 100, but there is no guarantee that we will live 100. There is no guarantee we will live even 90, 80, 70. There is no guarantee that we will be alive by next year. There is no guarantee even we will be alive by next month. I was hoping to spend some more time with my, my parent a few years ago. And the year I made conscious decisions to take more time off and spend more time with them, that year my mom passed away. And it has been 3 years. And so we expect others or oneself to live up to certain, but there is no guarantee. there's no guarantee. And even this year, I'm seeing many relatives passing, kind of distant relative. But just within a few months, I have been here, many of them have passed away. So that is how fragile our life is, how unstable and fragile our life is. And so it is helpful to reflect, contemplate on that, not to induce fear, but instead to induce some kind of sense of urgency, that I should practice, I should make my life meaningful while I'm still alive, because I never know when our life will come to the end. And before it comes to the end, I want to make it meaningful through engaging into the virtues, practice, Dharma practice. So the whole meditations on death impermanence is to induce sense of feeling of urgency to practice the Dharma immediately without postponing it, so that we can make our life meaningful, so that we don't waste this incredible potential, life with full of potential. That is the, so then we meditate on death impermanence, and then we meditate on, karma, or the law of cause and effect. After we die, it's not end. Our body might end, but our consciousness continue and take new form of life. What kind of life we take? At the moment, we don't have really choice. It depends on our karma. If we have a stronger negative karma, we will have more unfortunate rebirth. If we have stronger karma, then we will have more fortunate and higher rebirth. And if we are taking a rebirth in one of those unfortunate rebirth, the opportunity to practice the Dharma is extremely difficult and limited. We don't have to see far away. One of the other form of life that we see is animals. If we really see any form of animal, how much really they do have the opportunity to practice the Dharma, to really reflect, contemplate, meditate, and through that kind of reflection, contemplation, and meditation, to expand their love, compassion, bodhicitta, the wisdom. How much we can see with that, how much potential they have. So that should give us some clarity. And so therefore, with that understanding, then we take refuge, the Buddha Dharma Sangha, so that we continue to have high rebirth. Even we don't achieve a, nirvana or a high realization in this life, but so that we can continue in next life, continue in our spiritual journey. And in order to have that, continue our spiritual journey, we need to have the right conducive condition, that is high rebirth, such as human beings. So we can continue to grow in that life after life. And so In order to do that, then we go to the refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And having gone in the refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, then we try to apply the commitment and advice of the having gone to the refuge, and that means, reframing on the minimum level, reframing from the 10 non-virtuous actions and engage in 10 virtuous actions as much as possible. And if we can do that, if we can live our life from reframing from 10 non-virtuous actions and by living in 10 virtuous actions, then definitely you can have a higher rebirth next life. But unless we put effort, it's not easy to refrain from 10 non-virtues and to live virtuous actions all the time. Sometimes we lie, sometimes we kind of, engage in the, meaningless gossips, idle speech. Sometimes, we use harsh speech. Sometimes, we use divisive speech. Sometimes when we don't like someone, then we try to use divisive speech to divide others, And it is also not easy not to kill all the time. And sometimes even without much intention, sometimes we might be taking someone's belongings, something even which doesn't belong to us, in a way, stealings and sexual misconduct, especially, covetousness, ill will feelings, wrong view. It's not easy to kind of stop all of those. We try and maybe we make little progress, but so through that, so if we put effort to live our life from, from reframing those 10 non-virtuous engagement, then definitely we will have a higher fortunate rebirth in next life, where we can continue to practice again and make further progress in our spiritual path. And so through that, of course, if we can actualize the Dharma within ourselves, the wisdom within ourselves, then definitely, we don't have to worry, about unfortunate state in the future, And then next is reflecting, contemplating, meditating on the defect or the fault of samsara in general. Even supposedly, that we practice, live our life virtuous by reframing such as 10 non-virtuous action, and we live virtuous action, and we have a high rebirth next time. As a human beings, not only human being, maybe even better condition than what we have now. Even we have that kind of high rebirth, still, since we are still in samsara, still we are not free from the karma and the delusions, still we have our own difficulties, our own problems, our own sufferings, Even you might be very healthy, even you might be very rich, even you might, get most of the things that, you are able to get most of external things that you want, but still, as long as we have all these afflictive emotions, delusions, you are bound to suffer, Externally, you have everything, but sometimes you get so upset and angry with things here and there. Sometimes we are not happy with so many things. Even you want this, you get it, but then you are not happy with that. You are dissatisfied all the time. this kind of dissatisfying mind, anger, resentment, ignorance, through ignorance, misunderstanding, through misunderstanding, a lot of anger, hatred, resentful, and so forth. When you have all these negative emotions, those destructive emotions, we continue to suffer. We might not be suffering physically, but we are continuing to suffer mentally. And sometimes the mental suffering is much worse than the physical suffering. Much more worse. Just to share, even when I was tested positive, for the COVID, I had some difficulty, all my muscles, my body aching and just sleeping and have no power to kind of get up, and no appetite for the food and all of that. Physically, definitely there is challenges, but more than that, I was much more suffering from my mental. And I was so worried, did I pass this to my dad? Because I was staying with him. So I didn't know, whether I had passed with him or not. So I was so worried. And that was more painful. Thinking maybe I might have passed him. The worry that I might have passed him was much more painful than the physical pain that I was experiencing. And this is just one small example, just one small how our mind, the mental pain is much more stronger and much more worse, And when we are driven by karma, when our life is driven by karma, when we have no control over our karma, we can make plan, we can try to create all the right conducive condition to succeed our plan, but things go just like this. You have no control. I had just booked, my ticket back to, I was supposed to be back on the 12th of June, and because of lockdown here, the plane were canceled, so I couldn't come. Then I was looking for another new ticket recently after things started to kind of open up a little bit, even though it's not fully open. So I got a ticket back on the July 10th. I was excited, and just this morning I got an email saying that plane is canceled because I was supposed to fly to the Dubai, and the government there is for time being stopping all the flights. So you can plan and you can have all this and you think, oh, everything's in order. Boom, something happens. You have no control or charge. You think you have control. You think you are in charge of all of that, but we found out that is not the case. And that is when our life is still influenced or controlled by the karma. Until we are free from the karma and the delusions, we don't have really control. So much we have some control, but we don't have full control. And so thereby by reflecting, contemplating on that, then we begin to have this understanding, as long as we're in samsara, as long as our life is controlled by the delusions and karma, that is what it means to be in samsara. When your life is being under the influence or control of delusion and karma, that is what it means in being in samsara. When you're free from the delusion and the karma, then you are free from the samsara. That is what it means. And so through that reflection, then we come to this understanding, until I free myself from the samsara, by freeing myself from the karma and the delusions, no matter whichever high rebirth, fortunate rebirth or unfortunate rebirth, still you are not free from the suffering and the pain. Once you come to the deep understanding and profound understanding and realization, then you will not be attached to samsara at all. Then you will not have any clinging, grasping to the samsara. Instead, you will really have inspirations from the depth of your heart for the true liberation and nirvana. And when you have no more attachment to samsara and the experience of samsara, and when you have a strong driving force, inspiration for the liberation, then you make the first step in entering the first path. And and then when you practice, your practice will be very powerful. Whatever practice you do, your practice will be very powerful and effective. And so those are the preliminary. So once we have all these foundations of preliminary practice and realizations, then that will really help to generate the great compassion, loving kindness, bodhicitta, and to engage in those mind training to become very effective. Okay, so I think that is all for today. If there is any questions or comments, I will take some of them. Few minutes. We still have a couple of minutes. Anyone, please?
Nobody has a question. I think we're all good, Geshe. We all know everything.
It seems like, or nothing went in your here. That is what one of my teachers always used to say. He always ask for cautions, and then when we don't have caution, he used to comments. That means either you have understood everything or you didn't understand anything. It should be one of them. If it is not one of them, you should have some cautions. That is what he used to say. So I guess I will take that. I will take that you understood everything.
Well, Geshe, it's that the next steps are clear. It's just a matter of accomplishing them.
Absolutely.
It's very clear what needs to be done.
Yes. I think definitely. I think, yeah. In terms of intellectual understanding, I think there is some clarity that we understand, but we don't have that feeling due to the lack of practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even the impermanence, like we all understand that logically, but I know for one, I'm not there yet where it's just part of me, where I think I realize that at every moment of every day. It's not the case.
that is why practice is so important, I think. And sometimes when we think practice, and sometimes we feel that we don't have time for practice, or you struggle to sit on cushions. Even if you have time, maybe you feel like you need to watch the news, maybe you feel like you need to go and hike, walk, or you feel like you need to do something else, and so there is time, but we find struggle to sit and really contemplate, reflect on those different subjects. But if that is the case, of course, I think we need to have some discipline to really sit and to do some practice, even if it's a short period. We have to train to have that discipline, because that kind of discipline is important in our spiritual path as well as in our life in general, to have some discipline. At the same time, if we consciously try to make effort while you are walking, hiking, or gardening, to reflect on those issues, and then that itself becomes meditation, reflection, contemplation, then you don't have to feel bad that I don't have time to practice. Because while you are gardening, you are still contemplating. While you are watering, still you contemplate on that, whatever subject that you are trying to reflect on, contemplate on, And while you are hiking, walking, especially if you are doing by yourself. Of course, if you have sometimes friends, then of course, sometimes you talk. So that would be a little bit more difficult. But like if you're by yourself, then, you have plenty of time to contemplate and reflect. And so then, and sometimes, that can be even more helpful than sitting on cushion for certain individual. Maybe they might struggle to have a effect in their meditation and practice when they are sitting, but when they are doing same reflection, contemplation, meditation while they are walking, they might have more stronger impact of that. So so anyway, I just wanted to recommend that or comment that I find very useful to do that when I'm kind of walking, also hiking, and especially when you don't have to talk so much with others,
When you're hiking with us, we talk all the time. I'm so sorry.
No. Once a while is okay.
Can I just tell a little story? Because impermanence seems to always come up in my life, in my face, probably because I'm a death doula. But I was going on a search and rescue training, and we were getting in the vehicle, and there was a mouse trap in there because mice have been going in. And there was a baby mouse inside the vehicle, a little pink thing that was, I think the mummy had been killed in the trap or something, and just a little baby there. And so one of the search and rescue people said, "Oh, look how sad, look at this little mouse." And it is sad, little mouse. But I said, "Oh my gosh, this is so fortunate," because I was taking my vehicle and I have all the stuff for when you're dying, all the things. And so I took the mouse, I did all the mantras, all the things. This happens to me about once a week, all the things that you could do for the little mouse. And I had that mouse in my vehicle with my phone and Lama Zopa Rinpoche doing the mantras for death and dying for an hour and a half driving, and the mouse had died in that time. And I was almost celebrating that the mouse had such an amazing opportunity to come back, to have a rebirth that was so fortunate. And everybody else was so sad. And of course, I didn't want the mouse to die, but the mouse was going to die. So I know impermanence is not part of my moment to moment reality in my mind. I haven't realized it, but I'm so grateful because it keeps coming. Get the opportunity. So
Yeah. It is much more difficult when it doesn't stuck close to us, you know. I think it is with everything, even with this COVID, you know, people are more careless when it doesn't happen to their family or themselves. Once it happened to their family, their friend, themselves, then they know it's real and they are more careful, cautious. Before it seems it's so unreal, or maybe people are just faking. Maybe people are just making, it's not real there. Very people who I was seeing, you know, some people who are against vaccines, and they got themselves affected, and now they are actually encouraging people to take vaccines because of their experience. So their people's experience changes, or perception changes, and when it happens to themselves
yeah.
or their close ones, and it seems to be also, and that is one thing, but also in our case, we don't have to wait to that to happen. Meditations help that, to have that perceptions without having to really someone being stuck with that, you know. And also thereby being more ready if something happens, our minds are more ready to accept and deal with that with, I think, more openness and without being too overwhelmed by that tragedy, that pain. Yeah. But if we don't do the meditation and reflex contemplation, maybe if something does happen to our dear one unexpectedly, then we might not be able to deal with it, you know, the pain of losing so dear, so close to us, because our mind is not prepared for that, because our mind is not trained to that. And that can be extremely painful and difficult, you know, and that is whereas if someone has meditated, reflected, contemplated over the time, and then I think it wouldn't be so shocked and kind of, you know, they will have better ability to deal with that with more calm and more peaceful. Okay. Chanjo senjo rembo je mage pa na ge yo je kawa nyam ba me ba kong le kong tu peo. Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you.